Hi all, welcome to the channel, welcome to the workshop. We now have the next 4 issues of Build Kit from Knight Rider. If you want to get this for yourself, there will be links in the description below, but it's a really exciting time at the moment because we're not only finishing off the interior of this with the rear seats, we're going to be joining the centre console, dashboard and the chassis all together. So without further ado, let's get building. Okay, kicking off with issue 63. So, give you a quick flip through the magazine. And now onto the parts and what we'll be building up. So this is the back of the rear seats, or the one of the rear seats, the left hand side one. So these are the parts we get. Okay, so the first thing we're going to be doing is getting this. We're going to be placing a little bit of foam just in there, and then we've got this piece here, which, as before, we're just going to slot under all these little tabs. So that is looking just like that, and then we're going to be securing that with some DP screws all around. So just putting the DP screws in there. Again, you don't want to push too much because you'll just end up pushing the plastic part away. You can just about hold this lip, which does help actually, give you a little bit of resistance to get these to screw in nicely. So now we've got those done. We need 2 more screws for this part, which are the NP screws, and they're going to just go into these 2 holes here. And you don't want to over tighten these ones because they're going into this rubberized seating, and if you do it too much, it's going to pop through the top of the seat. So I've just got my thumb there, a finger there to try and help with that. But they are in there just like that. Just make sure they are holding it together enough. And then we're going to finish off this piece with the back piece, and that's just going to slot over like that. And then we've got 2 BP screws that will go into place through these holes. And then finally, we need to bring over the interior, and this is going to place just in there. And we've got 2 holes on the back here and 2 holes just here. We're just going to line those up, screw those together, not trapping your seatbelt. So that's just going to sit just like that, and then we're going to use 2 BP screws to screw into that. One in there and the other one just in there. And that is what stage 63 is looking like. So we'll now move on to stage 64. Okay, so stage 64. Again, just a quick flick through the magazine. And then what we're interested in, which is a build. And we're pretty much building up the base of the final seat, pretty much the same as what we did before. So let's get to do that. So first thing we want to do is put this little bit of foam in there, and then we've got the base again, and again using the little tabs I just want to get the tabs over the top of the seat, just like that. And then we're using the DP screws for that as well. Just like that. And then we're going to be placing it in here as we did before. So we've got the pin and the screw hole. So that's just going to locate into there. And then we'll be securing it from the bottom with a BP screw. And that's looking just like that. So we're going to move on to the next stage. Okay, issue 65. Now, after 64 being a very, very short issue, there's a lot to do in this one. So, as well as building up the rear seat, like we did just a moment ago, we are also going to be attaching the dashboard. And as well as that, we are going to be attaching the bulkhead and making sure that all the cables are neat and tidy under the center console there. So let's get on and do that. So as we did before, just going to build up the bottom of the seat. Using the DP screws again. And then the two NP screws. Just like that. And then again the base or back. And two BP screws. Okay, so just going to bring this back over, and as we did before, we're going to be securing that in the back just there. And again, that's going to be with two BP screws. You know there's going to be a lot to do when you've got this many BP screws to put in. So that's what the rear seats are now looking like. And now we need to grab our dashboard. Not seen this for a little while, have we? So we're going to be basically feeding all these cables down through this hole. I've also mentioned it on the channel before, but I did make a mistake when I routed these cables originally. So just make sure that all your cables are coming out of the bottom here, and not as I had them before, which was through this slot. So if you do find that that's where you've got your cables coming from, you need to remove this bulkhead and then try and get them to come through here. I managed to just undo one half of the bulkhead and then slide them around. So that's something to just note. So all of these cables down through this hole. Make sure that they all come out the bottom. And then replacing the dashboard onto its mounting points. Ensuring that all those come out. Making sure that no cables are trapped. So as you can see, that is now sat on there correctly, and making sure that all these holes are all lining up correctly. And we're securing those with 4 BP screws from the top, and they are going to go into there and there on both sides. The wires have scattered my BP screws. Just extend my screwdriver. This one. And then the same on this side. And then we need to flip it over, and we're going to be putting more BP screws in it. So we've got 3 more to go, which will be here, here, and here. So that's what that is looking like, just like that. Now we do need to keep this upside down, because we also have this part to fit. And we've got some other holes here, and they're basically just going to line up on those holes there. And we're going to be securing it with even more BP screws. So 3 more, just to hold that bulkhead in place. I'm going to start with the center one. Okay, at this point we are asked to check that the brake pedal still works, and you can press it and you can hear the click as it presses the button. You can just about see it there. And then we need to route this cable just behind this tank, so it is now in that position like that. And then we have all the stickers to try and secure these cables in place. Now you want to try and get these as flat as possible to make it much easier when it comes to placing this on the chassis. So I'm just going to try and do one at a time. Try and ensure that they all follow a nice flat path. It's also a good time to check that all your cables have their letters on the ends, not halfway down the cable or something, because we will also be wiring this up to the circuit board. So just securing these cables with the stickers that they supplied. So you can see that I've spaced them all out so really nice and flat. We've got a sticker here and a sticker here, although I'm tempted I might just get a bit of electrical tape and just put another bit across there, just to ensure that they do stay nice and neat, because I think that will make it a lot easier when it comes to putting this onto the main chassis. So I've just put a bit of electrical tape on there as well. And all these cables come nice and neatly out the back. And as I said, all of mine do have the original lettering on it, so that'll make it easier for when it comes to wiring it to the circuit board, because some of these are the same colours. So we've got some red and blacks as a quite a large amount of red and blacks there. All the others are fairly easy to define. But that is how it's looking now. Okay, finishing off with issue 66. We do get some parts with this, but I've already looked through the instructions, and we're not going to use any of these today. It did also come with some GM screws, which I've got down here, but we had a load of GM screws we didn't use from the last issue, so effectively all of this just gets put in my parts box. You can see I've got the chassis up. I've got the little blocks in place because we are going to be attaching the interior to this, so making sure that the pressure off the wheels. The very first thing we're going to be doing is a bit of disassembly. So what they want us to do is just undo a few of these cables. So we've got the B cables, which are the door switches. So we're just going to take off both of those, leaving the little Y splitter in place. We also need to remove the cable for the motor. So there's the motor. So we're going to pull that one out as well. Put that one to one side. We also want to take out this cable labelled M. And that's the headlights. You also need to take off the one labelled R. I've already removed those. Mainly because they are attached to this when I was doing some testing. So basically that's what you should be left with. 2 B cables, an R cable, MOT cable, an M cable and an A cable. Once you're at that position, we can now put the interior in place. So the interior is going to be held in place by 4 screws. So we've got 2 here and here, and on this side here and here. And they are going to go into these little places here. So one there, one there, one there, and one there. These are going to push down over these little lugs. When we put this in, we need to gather all these cables, and they need to come up behind this bulkhead. And to do that, there's a little channel here, and you can just about see that that channel allows access behind this bulkhead there. So let's just get those slotting up there. Might be easier to grab a pair of tweezers for some of the thicker cables, or the thicker plugs I should say. So I'm just pulling up on the cables as I'm pushing this down to try and get them all to come up neatly. Good idea to ensure any straggling engine cables are not trapped or not caught around anything. And then that should sit just in there. And that is held in by 4 GM screws. So I'm just going to dip them in a bit of oil, and We've got the first one going in just here. But certainly a good idea to make sure you've got your little chocks in place so you don't end up breaking a wheel or something. Let's put the two in this side. Right, so now that's done, I'll just move the car forward. What we now need to do is reattach all the cabling. And we're finishing off with L and O. So those cables are now all in there, all plugged in, all connected. And we've got these cables obviously out the front of this bulkhead. The next thing we need to do is connect the steering wheel to the steering shaft. So it's going to be difficult for me to show you on camera, I think. Let's have a look, see if I can get the best angle possible. So you can just about see the shaft there. So we've got that little universal joint that we're effectively creating. We need to put 2 screws in either side. So I'll just show you the instruction there. So that's what we need to do. Right, I've managed to get one in. This is the right hand side screw if you're looking at it this way. That seems to be the easy way. You can see I've got a bit of tape there, because what I did, I ended up taping that to the shaft so it would hold it in place. I did try and get in the other side. It just didn't want to work as the first one, so I highly recommend getting the other one in first. Right, so that's now connected. As you can see, it does just about turn the wheels, but we knew that wasn't a very good gear system anyway. But it does work. That was super tricky to try and get those GM screws in there. And there may be 1 or 2 now loose in the engine bay. But anyway, moving on. Okay, so now we need to connect up some of the engine components. So we've got this one, comes from the bottom of the radiator, right down the bottom. This one needs to go into the bottom of this expansion tank. Now in the bottom of this there's just a hole, so we just need to try and thread it up into that hole. There we go, so that's in there. And then we've got this one that comes from the air conditioning compressor, and that's going to go on to the end of that part of the expansion tank. We have another cable which I've just realised is missing from my engine. Oh, it's fallen out. There it is. So this one that comes from the control box, which I'm just going to reattach. That one then goes onto the little nipple on this bulkhead here. Just like that. And then we've got 2 more to connect, which should be over this side of the engine. And they're going to go onto these 2 little nipples here. Let me just turn that around for you. So we should have 2 thin pipes, and they're going to go onto the nipples just here. So one just there, and another one just there, like so. Both of those I think come from the brakes right down the bottom of the engine. But if, like me, half of these cables are probably in the wrong place. As long as you've got 2 cables going on there, I'm sure it will look absolutely fine. So that is now it for that stage. So I'm going to do some testing, make sure all the cables and wires are still working absolutely fine. But that is it for this build pack. Scanner lights working.
I am the voice of Night Industry 2000's microprocessor, K.I.T.T for easy reference, a KITT if you prefer.
The motor is running as well. All lights are working. Headlights, fog lights. I've mentioned this before, don't be confused that I've got 2 sets of fog lights at the moment, whereas you guys will all have 1. I had a damaged part of these and they sent me a whole new part, including the fog lights, so I've just popped the fog lights in just because I did. But that is all working, so I'm happy with that. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please remember to give me a thumbs up. If you want to get this for yourself, there'll be links in the description below where you can get it from issue 1. Kit is looking absolutely fantastic. All the electronics are working. Really happy with how this build's going. If you want to see more of how Kit progresses or anything else that goes on the channel, like I've got the Lego DeLorean hopefully coming out next week, and also I strip apart my TRX4's portal axles and re-grease them. If you want to see any of those, please remember to hit that subscribe button and ding that bell, and then you'll be notified when I release new videos. Until then, I'll see you around.